Hello. I've heard somewhere that it takes an audience around 30 seconds or so to actually start listening to what someone is saying. So I thought I'd give you some time to, take me in, judge me a little bit, put some labels on me, and maybe around now, you're ready? Are you ready?
Yes.
Thank you. I was a bit nervous that no one would answer. During my first year at AUC, I got the chance to tell a story on the stage of that year's TEDx AU College event. I chose to tell a story of interconnection, of how all of us are interconnected with each other and with the world in such a way that we can do the most good for the world by making sure that we take good care of ourselves. And I meant this in a few different ways. For example, climate activists can't do much if they're all burned out, and balanced actions and balanced judgments spring from balanced people. We create without what we have within. Also during my first year at AUC, I made friends with two guys named Leonard and Team. I haven't seen them here today because I expect that they're in The Hague. The three of us soon discovered that we were all very passionate about building a more sustainable world. And that might make you think that we agreed on most things regarding sustainability, but that's pretty far from the case. Especially me and Team got into more than one heated discussion, and one of the things that we disagreed upon was, I need to breathe a little. Okay, now I can continue. One of the things that we disagreed on was which story it is that people need to hear in order to act in proportion to the crisis that we're in. Team said that most people just don't know how bad things are, and they need to be shocked with facts and shaken awake. I said that actually many people do know, and more facts that spell doom won't help them. What they need to hear are stories of what we can do and what we are doing. At this point, Leonard came in between us, as he often had to do, and said that, guys, you're both right. Both of your stories are true and needed. Both Leonard and Team went on to, in our third year, be part of a team that organized a youth climate conference at AUC in the academic building. And a very important part of this conference were the so-called Talanoa sessions, where small groups of people got together to share their stories of climate change. They did this in order to honor the fact that just as climate change affects us all, but in different ways, so stories have the power to affect us all. But different people need to tell and hear different stories. And that doesn't stop all of those stories from being true. Having learned that, I started looking back on the story that I told in 2017 a little bit differently. I mean, it was still true, but now I started wondering to who. I told that story because it had helped me get out of the very dark pit of eco-anxiety a couple of years before I came to UC. And I intended that story for the ears of people who feel the pain of all beings as their own, and who have committed to not shy away from how bad things are. People who struggle with the tendency to put their own joy on hold until all the injustices in the world have been corrected. But, I mean, the audience that day were probably made up, at least to some part, maybe a big part, of people who don't work quite like that. Maybe every single audience member knew enough of the facts, but it's possible that they hadn't yet allowed themselves to feel the gravity of the situation. And for them, in the best case scenario, my story was something that they maybe on a conceptual level agreed with, and which made them feel good for a little while, but then they forgot about it pretty much as soon as they left the theater. In the worst case scenario, my insistence that it's so important for us to take care of ourselves might have given them an excuse to continue to put themselves first and planet second, instead of seeking a life that is good for both. As you can tell, this led to a struggle for me before this event. I don't really know which story I should tell you. I don't know which truth it is that you need to hear. But I have decided not to reiterate the story that I told back then. If you're curious, however, about that story, I recommend you to read the works of Eckhart Tolle way more thoroughly and completely than I managed to do. But a few things have changed since 2017. For one thing, Greta Thunberg has come along and shown us all how things are done, and I have learned a thing or two about myself. One of those things is that I am a little bit of a compulsive people pleaser. I'm a sucker for making people feel good about themselves. So I thought it would be a great exercise for me today not to do that, not to please you. I'm actually here to make you a bit uncomfortable. This room is filled with well-educated people, competent people. Many of you are students and recent graduates, such as myself. And I can imagine that you feel that the best route, or maybe the only route, for you to actually influence society right now is to add your numbers to the masses by joining strikes such as the one that happened in The Hague today. But we also have quite a number of people in here today who have more influence over society than the average citizen. We have people in here who hold powerful positions at prestigious institutions that, like AUC, claim to educate the leaders of tomorrow. But climate change isn't happening tomorrow. Climate change is happening now. So I want you to honestly ask yourselves whether you are right now being the very best role models for us that you can possibly be. And before you answer that question, remember that doing relatively well in comparison to other institutions or in comparison to the country that we live in is not good enough when there's hardly a single country in this world that is doing everything that it could and should be doing. And even if there was such a country, Netherlands would not be it. So doing slightly better than the government, the Dutch government, is not doing well. That is to only do slightly less shitty. So, what do you say? Are you doing your best? If yes, great. Keep on doing what you're doing. If no, then please join me in the struggle of finding out what it is that you need to hear in order to act in proportion to the crisis that we're in. Which truth will move you to do such things as divesting all of the capital of your institutions and your personal wealth from harmful industries such as the fossil fuel industry? What will make you cut all ties, symbolic or other, with companies such as Shell? I chose those examples because I know that my role models, they state loud and clear, in words and action, that the fossil fuel industry deserves no seat at the table when we decide how to move forward from here. And that's a truth that everyone needs to hear. Thank you.